Wow, it is so wonderful to see all of you here tonight, and so many of you are friends and colleagues, and so you will get this reference. I asked Jack, Jack Dangerman, who lives in a pineapple under the sea, and he had no idea. So another part of my job as chief scientist is to educate in all areas. Well, I am so pleased to be here this evening, and I'm so honored to be part of the JES Global Summit. That's wonderful. And my relatives on my mother's side live in Maryland. So, and some of them are in Pennsylvania. So maybe they'll catch some of the series as well. But thank you. I would like to take you on a journey to the bottom of the sea. But this journey has implications for the entire planet. We are following, hopefully, what's happening in Egypt right now with COP27 and the crisis that our planet is in. And a lot of this education about climate change and our concerns about climate change are being tempered by the ocean. The ocean is actually buying us valuable time as we try to solve this crisis of the age. And even going to the very deepest part of the ocean is part of that important work. But before I go into the details of Challenger Deep, which will be a lot of fun to show to you, I wanted to honor my colleagues in the Esri Creative Lab because they've put together a special film about this expedition, and they've done a beautiful job with it, and I would like to share it with you. So if we could have that first film, please, and it will run for about 5 minutes. I remember when I was 8, I saw the Apollo 11 mission and thought, if those men could land on the moon, well, why can't I go the opposite direction and explore the oceans? That's when my passion for the ocean started. The waves appeared every bit as welcoming as the sea of stars above. I still have the same excitement about the ocean. So being selected for this expedition made me so proud. You never know what you're going to find. 95% of the ocean is not explored. So the opportunity for me to get to the bottom at its deepest point is extremely exciting. The ocean is life. To understand what's happening to it and how this affects the rest of the Earth, humans need comprehensive maps. To date, only 23.4% of its floor has been mapped to modern standards, and we need to get to 100% to more fully protect the ocean's resources and uncover clues about what climate change might do to the rest of the planet. It still blows my mind that I had a chance to take part in an expedition with undersea explorer Victor Vescovo to the deepest place on Earth, Challenger Deep, located in the Pacific Ocean's Mariana Trench near Guam. As mission specialist, my primary duty was to operate this new sonar system in order to bring back the first high-resolution mapping from these depths. And that's never been done before. It represents a major turning point for me. I'll be the first person of African descent of any gender to visit Challenger Deep. I wish I could share this with my mom, who passed away recently. She always encouraged me to follow my dreams, even if they lay at the bottom of the world. When you're in any type of submersible, you put your complete trust in that equipment. You have to. The risks are great, but the rewards could be greater. As you go down, you go through the twilight zone, when all of the light goes away and it's complete darkness. You sit quietly. The touchdown,
That moment when you reach the bottom is amazing. In a way, you really are in an alien environment.
Congratulations.
Oh, wow, what an image down there. This is part of planet Earth, but this is not part of planet Earth that we inhabit or that we know about. Sadly, we got a quick reality check.
It's a bottle.
As soon as we get here.
Look, it's a freaking bottle.
Wow. We have a lot of work to do for our planet.
Wow. We're operating the first side scan sonar at full ocean depth.
All right.
Challenger deep.
We captured a lot of new information that we can bring to the rest of the world, that marine scientists are currently processing. Science, the ocean, and the earth will be better for it. I think about all the female role models I've had, of being the first Black person to the deepest spot in the ocean. I'm thinking about that a lot, and I think it's really significant. This is something that's not off limits because you're Black. I hope this adventure will inspire young people to live out their own dreams and support each other. If we're going to make progress and save the earth, the only way to do that is to do it together.
So thank you. That's really to my colleagues in the Esri Creative Lab who put that together. So now I'd like to give you some details about this expedition. And to start off, here is the Good Ship Pressure Drop, which is a play, yes, on the Shirley Temple song. The crew likes to call it the Good Ship Pressure Drop. And you can also see the support vessels that are behind the pressure drop. This is during one of the operations where the submersible is on its way to the bottom, and the ship and the support vehicles are keeping as much communication contact with the submersible as possible until it returns again to the surface. One of the interesting things about this operation, which is called Caladan Oceanic, this is a privately funded operation. It's very similar to Eric and Wendy Schmidt, Eric Schmidt of Google. There's the Schmidt Ocean Institute, which comes from their private funding. We know about Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin. There is the late Paul Allen. He has put together, before he died, he put together Vulcan, which is an ocean exploration and science organization. Even Elon Musk with SpaceX. These are all privately funded operations where the owners are putting in their own money to contribute to science and engineering to do their part. And all of them, I would say, are environmentally minded. So Caladan is another one of those. Caladan is also a small customer of Esri, and that's part of the relationship. That's part of how I was able to go on this adventure. Another thing that I love about oceanographic research in general, and it was no different with this particular expedition, is that all of these nations were represented on the crew, among the crew and the scientists on board the Good Ship Pressure Drop. So there are 14 flags here, and there were 43 of us on board the ship. 7 of us were women. And this was one of the happiest crews I'd ever sailed with. It really was a wonderful group of people. One of the things that Caladan Oceanic was put together for was to fulfill Victor Vescovo's dream of going to the 5 deeps. Now, this is amazing. They accomplished this in 2018 and 2019. The 5 deeps are the Malloy Deep in the Arctic, the Java Trench in the Indian Ocean, the South Sandwich Trench in the Southern Ocean, the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic Ocean, and of course, Challenger Deep in the Pacific. These are the 5 deepest points in those 5 major parts of the global ocean. And what's amazing about what they accomplished is that this had not been accomplished before. We've sent all these people to the moon. We've put vehicles on Mars, and yet we had not visited the 5 deepest parts of our own planet until 2018. And beyond that, the oceanographic community did not even know what the actual maximum depth was of those 5 deeps. So that's what Victor and his crew accomplished. That's why he put Caladan Oceanic together. That's why he funded the refit of an old Navy and NOAA vessel that became the pressure drop. That's how they designed and built the limiting factor submersible to accomplish this and everything that goes along with that operation. So they did accomplish this in 2019. They went to the 5 deeps. Victor went to the 5 deeps himself. He is already an accomplished helicopter pilot. He's a US Naval commander. He is an amazing explorer. He's been to the 7 highest spots on all of the terrestrial parts of our planet, including Mount Everest. He has skied to both the North Pole and the South Pole. He is just amazing. And if that wasn't enough, before he took me to Challenger Deep, he went into space with Blue Origin. So I said, Victor, please, first of all, please come back because you're supposed to take me to Challenger Deep. And now here you're going to space. He said, oh, don't worry. We'll only be up there for a few minutes. I'll be back in plenty of time and we'll go. And that's what happened. He went into space in June and we had our expedition in July. But after completing the 5 deeps by himself, he piloted the limiting factor to those 5 deeps. He then decided to keep going for another couple of years, and he welcomed what I would categorize as 3 types of people to go with him. The limiting factor submersible has room enough for 2 people, so it's a 2-seater. So who got the 2nd seat on his 2nd round of expeditions? Well, first there were pleasure explorers, ocean environmentally minded explorers who could afford to pay for that seat. And that did help to fund part of Caladan Oceanic's operations. But then there were a whole series of special guests to honor different places, especially people who are local to these areas, to these 5 deeps and to other parts of the ocean. There are special people like Kathy Sullivan. And again, this is how the Esri connection came in, because Kathy Sullivan is a very good friend of ours at Esri. She's been here. I think she's spoken at a Redlands forum before. You may know about her as the first American woman to walk in space. And she was also the administrator of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Well, Victor invited her to go to Challenger Deep to become the first woman to descend to Challenger Deep. And also, as her patch says here, that then made her the most vertical person in the universe. And no one is ever going to beat that. So there are all kinds of records that have been set by these special individuals, including most recently, the first Pacific Islander to go to Challenger Deep. But because of Kathy Sullivan's connection with Esri, that became an even closer connection to us and eventually to me, because Victor invited me in category 3, scientists who were invited to go as guests in the limiting factor submersible and to actually be a mission specialist. So you know about mission specialists on the space shuttle and on other spacecraft. You can be a mission specialist in a submersible as well. And your mission is to operate a piece of scientific equipment. There is a mission to the dive. It's not just going down there to look around and to set the record, but you're actually going to accomplish a little experiment. And one of the first mission specialists was Y.T. Lin. He went to Challenger Deep with Victor as the first Asian American to go to Challenger Deep. And Victor wanted him to go, especially because Y.T. Lin is Taiwanese. And Y.T. made his dive before the Chinese were able to make their dive with their submersible. There's only one other submersible that can do what the limiting factor does. And it is built by, it's a Chinese submersible. But YT also operated a special acoustic instrument and did an ocean acoustic experiment in Challenger Deep, which was really cool. And my mission was to operate this side scan sonar deeper than anyone has operated this piece of equipment, which you saw in the film, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. And so we did accomplish the first portable side scan sonar survey of the western pool of Challenger Deep. So it was awesome to go. It was awesome to go as the first Black person, but it was really awesome as well to be the first to operate this sonar successfully. So this is also National Geography Awareness Week. So happy Geography Awareness Week. Tomorrow is GIS Day. So I would be remiss in not showing you a beautiful Esri base map. This is our Esri Firefly imagery base map to give you again some geographical context to where we were, where Challenger Deep is in the Western Pacific. This is, we have the Philippine Islands, Japan, it's in that part of the world. And to zoom in to that little yellow box, this is what we call a geographic diorama, which one of our star cartographers, John Nelson, has come up with this new kind of map and visualization. So it's like you're looking in a fishbowl or a diorama, and it's a wonderful way to show this part of the world, Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. It's actually the locus of the Pacific Plate diving underneath the Philippine Sea Plate. So this is a subduction zone. This is a place where there are lots of earthquakes, where there are lots of volcanic eruptions. This is similar to the San Andreas Fault, except it's underwater. And in terms of the depth, John has put in for me some context. If you put the Grand Canyon into this part of the world, it would only reach here. The resting place of the Titanic would only get you this far. And if you put in Mount Everest would be right around here. You'd still have about a mile to go before you got to the bottom of Challenger Deep. So that's just how deep we went. And within Challenger Deep, there are 3 depressions that are known as pools: the eastern, the central, and the western pool. Most people who go to Challenger Deep to set records, the first person of a certain category to get to the very, very deepest part of the world, they do go to the eastern pool. But the central and the western pools are not nearly as visited. And Victor and I decided that it would be good to go to the western pool, to a place that had never been visited by anyone. It's not the deepest part of Challenger Deep, but it's all within Challenger Deep, so it all counts. So that's where we actually made our dive. Now, before going on such an adventure, I had to make sure to get my rest. So here's a picture of my bunk with my Snoopy, and you might have noticed Snoopy in the video. Snoopy did go to Challenger Deep as well. Snoopy always dives with me. And here's a picture of me practicing. There are a lot of safety precautions, a lot of safety training. There's no extensive training that's needed to do the dive. And people always ask me about the physical preparation for the dive, and I can talk about that in the question and answer. But one of the most important things I had to do was to learn how to get into and out of the submersible safely. You want to make sure that when you get into the submersible, as you saw in the video, you get in smoothly and quickly. You don't want to flip any switches. You don't want to flip the wrong switch. And you want to make sure that you settle yourself securely in your seat, because you're going to be in that seat for well over 10 hours. So I was doing my practicing the day before the dive, learning how to get into and out of the capsule. And we had a CBS news crew with us on the expedition, and they kept talking about my shirt. They really liked my shirt. So this is what the shirt says: science, because making stuff up is not okay. Thank you. Now, in preparation, more on the attire, one of the wonderful things about doing these dives is that people give you bracelets or necklaces. So I've got a necklace that is very sacred to someone to take down to Challenger Deep. I was wearing this map the gaps t-shirt because another thing that this expedition did was to map broader areas of the ocean floor as part of the Seabed 2030 initiative, to literally fill in the gaps of our understanding of our maps of the detailed parts of the ocean floor, and we're trying to do that by 2030. I'm also standing here right before getting into the submersible with Nicole Yamase. She, in 2021, became the first Pacific Islander to dive to Challenger Deep. Just a fantastic person. She was getting her PhD at the time from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And she came back out on our expedition, of course, because she's here with me in this photograph. And then after the expedition, she had 2 weeks to get ready to defend her PhD. It's like, Nicole, we love it that you're out here, but you only have 2 weeks until your defense. She said, I know, but I have to be out here. I have to support all of you. And she did defend her PhD successfully. So she is now Dr. Yamase, and she has her PhD in marine biology. There are also some fancy shoes that I'm wearing here. And a lot of people have asked me to talk about these. There's been so much excitement about this dive, and I so appreciate and love my colleagues because they've done all kinds of things like the video, the maps. And one of my colleagues, Martin Coping, he makes shoes. That is his hobby. He makes sneakers from scratch. So he made this pair of, these are custom Esri kicks, and they're made out of Esri swag. They're made out of Esri tote bags, Esri mouse pads, Esri lanyards, I think. Esri has a cycling jersey. That's part of the inside of the shoe. And the rest of it he put together with his materials, Italian leather. It was wonderful. And I'm wearing these tomorrow when I talk to children throughout the Redlands Unified School District. So here are some pictures, some additional pictures of getting into the submersible. It's quite an operation, and everything is very tightly choreographed for everyone's safety. We also wear these life vests just in case you fall. If you fall, then you have to get fished out and you don't get to dive. So you have to make sure not to fall, and waving the last goodbye and getting into the submersible as I had practiced. And it's really fun we have to wear the blue, this is a NASA jumpsuit, and we have to wear the NASA jumpsuit because it's flame retardant. So in case there is in the unlikely event of a fire in the submersible, there is nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. You're going to be right in the midst of it. So if you're wearing flame retardant clothing, that gives you a fighting chance. I also am sporting the seal of the state of Hawaii and the seal of the great state of California on my suit there. This is really interesting. How many of you are familiar with the phenomenon of styrofoam cups at sea? Only a few of you. Okay. Well, it is a big tradition when you're doing operations at sea, especially with submersibles, to decorate a styrofoam cup. And as you can see in this picture, there's a whole bag of styrofoam cups that's going to go into the area of the submersible above the hatch, because that area will fill with water, and hence those cups will be subjected to hydrostatic pressure. So once you are, let me go back here. So once you come back from your dive with your cups, you go from this to this. So this cup was subjected to 16,000 pounds per square inch pressure at the bottom of Challenger Deep. It's a wonderful way to teach hydrostatic pressure to children, and they also make fantastic Christmas gifts. So I'm set for Christmas. Another resource that I'd like to point you to is a story map. Many of you who are familiar with our Esri technology know about our story map medium. It's a way to tell any type of narrative, including for journalists, with using maps, videos, sounds, everything. You can tell any type of story using a map. So our Esri Story Maps team has done a story called Challenge Accepted, and you're welcome to take a picture of this so that you have the URL or the web address. I'll show it to you again at the end. But the story map tells the whole story of the dive from start to finish. It again orients you. We started from Guam, and then it was just 200 miles, nautical miles to Challenger Deep. And this story map also comes with a series of three-dimensional web scenes. So I'm going to tell the kids tomorrow that this is like a video game, because it is. These are interactive 3D web scenes. And so our dive was recreated in 3D through these web scenes. So here you have a pressure drop, and the limiting factor was recreated in ArcGIS. And each major point of the dive is documented. This is 931 meters is where we first saw bioluminescence in the water. Bioluminescence is natural light given off by sea creatures. It got to be completely pitch black dark at around 400 meters. So at 900 meters, Victor saw some flashing outside of our viewports. And he said, this is it. We're in the twilight zone where we see these creatures, jellyfish, siphonophores, or worms. They're like undersea fireflies. The most amazing thing happened because he flashed the lights of the submersible and they flashed back. So we had a nice little conversation on our way down with those creatures at 931 meters. We didn't have the video turned on for that. Unfortunately, we had to save our batteries, so we don't have that captured. You'll just have to believe us, but it was just fantastic. At 10,451 meters, we turned on the sidescan sonar. Normally, the sidescan sonar of this type, the portable sonars, implode at 6,000 meters because of the great pressure, but the customized sonar that we had been given worked. So this was our first test. We turned it on at 10,451 meters and it powered on and worked. So that was a mission accomplished right there. And you're aware of the infamous beer bottle, which is just, again, evidence that no part of this planet now is out of the reach or the effect of human activity. We were depressed, we were shocked, we were sad to see that this infamous glass beer bottle had made it to the western pool of Challenger Deep ahead of us. Someone had illegally thrown this piece of trash overboard, and we didn't have a way to retrieve it because we didn't have a robotic arm. But it's just another reminder that we have got to do better by our planet, by our Earth home. We've got to stop polluting. We've got to be mindful of what consequences our actions have. But there are many, many other things that we saw. We were on the bottom for 2.5 hours. And as a geologist, I was just in love with these huge boulder fields. This is evidence of this collision zone between the Pacific and the Philippine Sea plates. I dubbed this area Flintstone's Quarry because of all of the angular boulders there. And this is at around 10,815 meters depth. There is life at this deepest part of the ocean. You'll see in a few minutes that the fish cannot survive at this depth. The fish are a little higher up. The deepest known fish are at around 8,000 meters, but at 10,000, this is 10,630 meters, there are these tubed anemones. I call them little sea flowers. Galathianthemum is the genus name. And there's several different species of Galatheanthemum that exist in Challenger Deep. And let me show you what this looks like from our viewpoint. And our creative lab added some eerie music as well, which is quite appropriate. But this is what it's like in the submersible. This is our forward cam. So this is what we saw directly ahead of us. And we also had viewports so that we could see a little off to the side as well. But this area is so sedimented because a lot of sediment is entrained from higher up down into Challenger Deep. And it covers everything that is there until it's disturbed by a volcanic eruption or by an earthquake. And there are also some of these flows, lava flows, come down into the trench and freeze into place. Some of these are void spaces or they create void spaces for fluids that come up from the seafloor that presumably feed these anemones, or we found a very strange species of hydroid. So it was a really amazing journey. We dropped into the central basin of the Western Pool and made our way across the basin and then up along the southern wall. And it was along this southern wall that we tested the sonar system. We made a couple of passes back and forth along the wall so that we could get live feeds from the sonar. So here's the sonar. It's on my side of the submersible on the starboard side. And what the sonar does is it sends out sound pulses and then records the strength of that pulse as it returns. And then that signal is turned into an acoustic picture, an acoustic image. This is very similar, and this is what it looks like underneath the starboard side of the submersible. It's very similar to what we use in many submersibles, what the Navy uses, a mesotech type of sonar to avoid colliding with things or to find things on the seafloor. So this is what the acoustic picture looks like. This is a different type of sonar, but this is the wreck of the Samuel B. Roberts, which was discovered just a month before we went to Challenger Deep. The Samuel B. Roberts is in the Philippines, and it's the deepest known World War II shipwreck to have been discovered now. And they used our submersible sonar to discover that. Also, the same sonar was used to help to discover the wreck of Shackleton's ship, the Endeavour, earlier in the year. Now, Caladan Oceanic does not make this sonar. It's made by Deep Ocean Search, which is a company that's based in France and Mauritius. And Deep Ocean Search was contracted by Caladan to customize their sonar to see if it could survive not at 6,000 or 6,800 meters, but all the way down at full ocean depth, 10,900 meters. And sure enough, here we are with the live feeds from the sonar. Snoopy is making sure that everything is going well also. And so this is mission completed. We got the live feed of data. The next challenge for us is to actually make a map out of these data. So our data scientists and cartographers at Esri are working on this now because we did not have an inertial navigation system with us in the sub. So these are just pictures. These pictures are not geotagged. They are not associated with any other information that is normally needed to make a final acoustic map of the seafloor. So that is our next research project, is to make that happen. This will help Deep Ocean Search, especially as now that they have created this instrument that will survive at these depths, at these crushing pressures. They want to be able to further develop that instrument and to have it actually be a full-on mapping instrument. So we're very happy to be involved with them in that research. The other thing that we sent down with us is a robot called a lander. And this says Hadal because Hadal is the very bottom of the ocean. There's abyssal, and then there's Hadal, which it does derive from the word hell. This lander is an instrument cage. It's fitted with cameras And also with this bait arm that has mackerel associated or stuck to it to attract the deep sea creatures so that we can photograph them, we can video them, and we can capture some of them for marine biological studies. So there was a lander that went with us, with the submersible, so that we could use it to range off of. Then there was another lander that was left, that landed further up on the flank of Challenger Deep. So what you saw going into the water was CLOSP. CLOSP and Flare, they're named after science fiction characters. Victor is a science fiction fan. It says CLOSP 3 and CLOSP 4 here because we were ranging off of CLOSP so that we knew our relative position and we could radio our position up to the surface ship. And by the way, because we were so deep, it took 7 seconds for anything that we sent to the surface to reach the surface. And thanks to CLOSP, we could give them a fairly accurate X, Y, and Z, fairly accurate longitude, latitude, and depth. Flare, on the other hand, we did not use for navigation, but Flare was our marine biology station. And this is where the exciting biology took place that I can show you. So let me get right to that. So this is what Flare saw. Here is the arm extending from it, and it was baited with jack mackerel, which these creatures love. These creatures, this is a snailfish. It's about 1 foot long. You can see it's completely white. There's no need for color, that we're in complete pitch black darkness. There are decapods. That's a decapod trying to carry away a piece of fish. These are giant anemone, giant amphipods. They're like shrimp. And I have to see if I can go back here and play this again, because there's a poor little fellow. He could not see where he was going. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. And bam, just right into the camera. The poor little guy. They are blind. They have no need to really have eyes. Their olfactory senses are much more sensitive. That's how they can sense their world in darkness. And really, you can almost, if you look at this video over and over again, you can see the front of this creature. This is what they have for eyes, and we think that that's their nose. This is a species, it's called Erythrines. And there is a Erythrines plasticus, which is the first species to be discovered with plastic, microplastic already entrained in its tissues. It's very tragic. It was only discovered a few years ago. This particular genus that you're looking at here, this Erythrines was discovered, I think, around 2010. And then here's another species, Benthicissimus crenatus. See, I'm learning all of the species. The red fellow who will come back into the picture, this is a decapod. And he is about 7 inches long. The antennae coming out are just amazing. Another snailfish, more white decapods there. And the snailfish are quite remarkable. You see this snailfish is starting to really wrestle now with what's left of the jack mackerel bait. And when these creatures get close to the camera, you can almost see through their tissues. You can see their lungs, you can see their liver, they're translucent. And of course, they have the adaptation that allows them to survive at these crushing pressures at these depths. And then finally, a real treat was this jellyfish that came into our view. Just a beautiful species. It almost looked like something out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind or an alien spacecraft, just coming on by there. So these are some of the beautiful, and we have hours of these videos, but I wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that are down there at these depths. And now back to the surface. Our web scene has us at the surface. after almost 10 hours, and it took about half an hour to get recovered. So if we could go to the video of the recovery, I think I have enough time. This is only for a couple of minutes, just to give you an idea of what that's like. So if we can get the video going, it's going to show you the Zodiac that is waiting for us to pop up to the surface. In the distance is the ship. Once we pop up to the surface and the Zodiac meets us, then the Zodiac is going to give its exact position to the ship, and then the ship will come to the submersible and to the Zodiac to bring us all aboard. So this is a GoPro that's on the helmet of the swimmer, and you'll see why this person is called a swimmer in a minute. But because that person is going to swim out to the submersible and get it ready. And here we are, we've popped up, there's our flag. So there we are. And one of the things that needs to go onto the top of the submersible are railings, so that once we come out of the submersible, we will have those railings to hold on to and we'll be safe. And this is, okay, so there goes the swimmer. The GoPro's on his head, and he's swimming over. And I think this is the best job in the world that this guy has. He clambers aboard the submersible, and now the Zodiac will bring over the railings that he will put on to the submersible. So here they come with the railings. And he's going to grab those and put one railing on either side, so that we will have that to lean on to and to hold on to. Because one of the things, it's a lot easier coming back from a submersible dive than from being in space, certainly, but it was very hard for me at least to use my legs after 10.5 hours in the submersible. So to have something like a railing to hang on to, especially when you're first climbing out, is really, really helpful. So he's got those in place. They have now radioed to the ship what the exact position is. And so now he will just sit and wait for the ship to come to that position, and then we will be brought on board. So thank you in the booth for the video. I'll go back to the PowerPoint. And so we've gotten back on board and coming back again, and some nice celebration. This is a chocolate cake. That is the limiting factor on the chocolate cake. To celebrate this, I was really lucky because I got the final dive to Challenger Deep with Caladan Oceanic. And Victor has sold Caladan to another person, and this was to commemorate his 15th dive to Challenger Deep. And he's made dozens of dives all over the world. He's really a remarkable person. He's a really nice man too. He's one of my good friends now. But we had chocolate cake and champagne. It was awesome. And of course, there was, those of you who know me know that I'm a Lego builder. So of course I had to build some Legos. This is my roommate. This is Victor peeking in on our picture here, but my roommate, Kate Wawatai, she is the sole female member of the submersible support team. She's a Maori. I learned so much from her. She did all of the safety checks with me before my dive, and she's also a certified submersible pilot in her own right. So my dream for her is that she will get to take the limiting factor to the Kermadec Trench off the coast of New Zealand. That is a sacred place for the Maori people. And our CBS News crew had their own drones. They didn't want the drones to land on a rolling ship with wet decks. So my next job after my dive was to be a drone catcher. So that was awesome. And the drones, the way drones are used now, in many different ways. A drone took this picture of our team as we headed into Palau. The sunsets at sea are gorgeous. And in Palau, we had some wonderful time with dignitaries and traveling around that beautiful country, snorkeling and swimming. This is the barbecue at the end. This is Victor and myself, but these are the two presidents of Palau, the former president, Tommy Remengesau, and the current president. Here we are at a bar, no Secret Service. You know, we're just hanging out with the two presidents of this republic. So that was just beautiful, just beautiful. So I've taken up enough of your evening time. That's what I would like to show you. And thank you so much for coming. So, and I did forget to point out that if you want to learn more, here is a hub, which has all kinds of information, and again, the story map.
Okay, so Dawn, if you don't mind, we might have some questions. Where are
Okay.
my mic runners? Here they come. Well, so while they're getting the mics, you guys can be thinking of your questions. I have a question. Did you take snacks down there for 10 and a half hours?
They sent us down with lunch.
Oh, lunch. Excellent.
So we had a sandwich. I had a sandwich and a bottle of water. And before the inevitable question comes up, I'll just say that no, there was no need to go to the restroom. They trained me how to slowly and healthily dehydrate so that I did not have the need, especially for women, on a 10 and a half hour submersible dive. It's just better not to have to use a device. So that was not a problem either.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, now that we've gotten those two things out of the way, who has a more scientific question? We've got one right here. Please introduce yourself and wait till you get the mic because our folks that are online won't be able to hear you otherwise.
I'm Brandon Lacey. I just want to ask, how many total expeditions to Challenger Deep have there been now? And how many people have been on them, just total over the entire everything, basically?
That's a wonderful question because between 1960 was the first expedition to Challenger Deep, and two men made that dive, one of whom is still living. Captain Don Walsh is 91 years old now. And I hope to see him in February at a conference. But it took several decades before the next visit to Challenger Deep was made, and that was James Cameron, the film director. But Victor Vescovo has really changed the numbers there, because now there are 20. I was the 27th person to go to Challenger Deep. So the number right now is 27. And for so many decades, we had put more men on the moon than we had sent to Challenger Deep on our own planet. So if you go to Wikipedia, this is where I can recommend Wikipedia, and just look up Challenger Deep. That is a very accurate description of all of the dives and the expeditions. They've got all the information correct. In fact, Victor does not know who this Wikipedia editor is, but there's a person who's following everything closely and then updates the Wikipedia entry, and it's very accurate. But the number stands now at 27, and I am the 5th woman to descend.
Excellent. All right. It looks like we got another question in this same row, Tricia. Thank you to Tricia and Pamela for running our mics tonight.
Hi, my name is Kurt Shaw, and you indicated that some specimens were collected, and I was wondering if they were brought up to the surface or if they can survive in less pressure.
No, the specimens, unfortunately, the specimens that are collected, they're mainly amphipods, because as you could see with that poor little guy who hit his head on the camera, the amphipods most readily go into the traps. So the amphipods are the way that, especially the genetics studies are being done now. One of the things that marine biologists are doing are finding genetic signatures and linkages between amphipods that are found in all of these deep ocean trenches, just trying to find out how they're related. There are other creatures that are sampled, but the difference in pressure is such that they are not going to survive. So they are given over to science in that way.
All right, I think we got another mic down there. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Don. My name is Joe Hanrahan. I'm curious what it feels like. Is it similar to scuba diving or going up in an airplane?
I think it's better. I think it's certainly, I think all of us can relate to being up in an airplane, and the people, your ears may pop, or you feel that sensation when you're going up in an airplane. In the submersible, you don't feel anything, because for one thing, you're descending so slowly and carefully that it's like a very pleasant elevator ride. And there wasn't even really the sense of motion. And Victor also he paused at certain points in the descent just to check things and also to communicate with the surface. He had to communicate with the surface every 15 minutes. And so with those pauses, it was just a very quiet, silent drop to the bottom. It took us 4 hours to get to the bottom, but 3 hours to come back up. That's because we had dropped weights and we made ourselves lighter, so we came up a little more quickly. But it's really, and all of the submersible dives that I've been on, including Alvin, they're all like that, because it's very slow, deliberate, and it's a beautiful experience. And on our way up, we watched a movie. Pretty cool, huh? Victor had his phone, and there was Velcro in the front panel of the submersible. He just stuck the phone up there, and that was our movie theater.
Okay, we've got a couple, or at least, a couple of questions that have come in from the interweb. So Ben?
So Don, thank you so much. This comes from Cassandra Perez asking, what are some of the major challenges with performing deep sea exploration like this that you experienced?
Well, the navigation is always a challenge. That's an excellent question, because knowing exactly where you are, and this is one of the reasons why we don't have a georeferenced map of the data that we collected, because the equipment, especially for the so-called HADL research, the very deepest oceanographic science, the engineers are still trying to create equipment that will withstand the pressures of the deep ocean. Many of these vehicles and instruments will literally implode below 6,000 meters. And so getting the equipment that will survive on the ocean floor to give us the communication, the pinging, if you will, of the acoustic signals that we need in order to locate ourselves, that's a huge challenge. There's always and it was a challenge for me. Being at sea is a challenge also, because you're on a vessel that's constantly moving. There's constant, you have to watch your footing all the time. There's equipment around. You can trip and fall very easily. For women or for people who are smaller in stature, the doors, the equipment can be very heavy. So I was in training for about 6 weeks, not to do the submersible dive, but just to be at sea and to be safe at sea. That's another challenge. The other challenge is the vastness of the ocean and that vast three-dimensional space. And the video mentioned that we have 23.4% of the ocean floor mapped. Well, the ocean floor is static, but what about the ocean, the commotion in the ocean? What about the waves? What about the tides? What about everything that moves in that fluid environment? We are so far behind. We only have about 5% of that really mapped. And even when we map it, that is just a snapshot in time. So one of the big research questions, and my Esri colleagues who are cartographers know about this all too well. This is about space, but it's also about time. How do you map something that is dynamically in motion all the time so that you can anticipate what's going to happen within that fluid space. So I could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
So another question from online coming from Patrick Cuneo. You talked about the waves. Can you tell us a little bit about the pace of the currents and the temperatures that you're experiencing when you were doing deep sea diving?
Yes, that's a great question, because the temperature in Challenger Deep and at the bottom of all of the world's oceans is close to freezing. Now, those of you who are oceanography students, I can give you a quiz. Why is it not freezing down there? Why it's not at zero? Because of the salt in the water, which interferes with the creation of ice crystals. So everything is still a fluid, but it's near freezing. We were in the submersible, it got down to 45 degrees. So we were chilly in the sub, but we had the sub to protect us. So that's temperature. Currents, there are bottom currents throughout all of the world's oceans. And in fact, currents are very, very important, because that's how heat gets cycled through the entirety of the ocean, which actually affects our weather. So you can make a connection between what's going on at the bottom of the world and the weather that is generated at the ocean's surface, that air-sea interface, which over a long-term period is our climate. The ocean is the engine of our weather and climate. So I don't know what the speed of the bottom currents was on our dive, but they were strong enough to move CLOSP out of position. So CLOSP was carried by a bottom current 600 meters to the east. So we never saw CLOSP. And we were very disappointed, because you're supposed to be able to see your lander. And we wanted to go up to CLOSP, do our navigation check, our ping check with CLOSP, and also to see if we could capture CLOSP in our side scan sonar, but we never saw CLOSP. And that was because of the strong current at the bottom. So it's a real factor.
Any other questions? No, we'll go right here.
Hi, Aileen.
Hi, Dawn.
This is one of my best friends. I know her already. But she is Aileen Buckley of Esme.
Everything you told us just seemed more and more and more exciting than the things that you had told us already. What do you think was, like, of all the whole expedition, the thing that stood out most to you?
Oh gosh, that is a really hard question. And my mind keeps saying chocolate cake, chocolate cake. But it was really, I think what stood out to me was the efficiency of the submersible team. Just seeing, I had a chance to see how they prepare the submersible before the dive, and how they took care of the submersible after the dive, and the way that everything, just as you saw with the swimmer, that was very smooth. There was no pause, there was no fumbling. It was just, somebody described it as a ballet. The way that they are able to handle that amazing vehicle, that's what really stood out to me. And I was, and I've seen this before with other operations, but especially because this is a full ocean depth dive, and they're preparing for the most dangerous dive that there is, with human beings going all the way down. I was just really impressed with Caladan Oceanic's team, and with my roommate Kate's role in it, because she was equal. She had the physical strength. She was completely equal with the men on that team. So that was really neat to see.
All right, we have time for one more question, and I see it right up there at the top.
Hi, I'm right here. I'm Miriam Tolsma, and I'm very interested in the life trajectory that took you from college up to where you are now. Did you have any sort of vision when you either entered or left college of the direction your life would take?
Oh, thank you. I actually had a vision at age 8. It was really that Apollo 11 mission. I can remember exactly where I was. Maybe, hopefully all of us who are old enough, who were alive in 1969, can remember where they were when those astronauts landed on the moon. But the most amazing thing for me is that I didn't want to become an astronaut. There was all these kids running around in spacesuits during that time. I was 8 years old, but I wanted to be like Jacques Cousteau and to explore the ocean. So it's just a matter of finding out, how do you do that? how do you get from wanting to do all of that to actually the steps. And so every step, the major at the bachelor degree level, and master degree and PhD was all leading towards being able to do this kind of work. And the wonderful thing is that Esri was part of this trajectory as well, because Esri we map the entire world, all parts of the planet. And we have a wonderful ocean maritime team here at Esri. And that was one of the reasons I was brought to Esri, was to help lead that team and to develop our technology to serve oceanographic science. So we have some wonderful people here, which is why I have stayed here at Esri. So in a nutshell, that's the trajectory. You may have a dream as a child, and you may think, well, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. But you can. It takes a while, but you can find a way. It doesn't have to be doing what I'm doing, but anything. You might want to be. My cousin wanted to be an animator at Disney, and he found a way to do that. So that's the story in a nutshell.